Hey y'all, I'm back to record or to recap rather, or record the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Y'all, this episode was so good. I enjoy it so much. Y'all need to let me know what y'all think in the comments. This is another podcast episode of the What Else is Going On podcast. You can either watch me. So if you're watching me on YouTube, you already know that. You can also hear the audio version, which can be found wherever it is you listen to your podcast, Spotify, iTunes, all that good stuff. It's under What Else is Going On podcast, but on YouTube, if you're listening to audio, it's We Go podcast. And you can also click the link in the description box on the podcast app, and it'll bring you right to the YouTube so you can watch it. All right, y'all, let's get into it. Season 5, episode 15. Smile, you're being recorded. So let's get right into it. Finally, y'all, they back after being gone for 2 weeks. So the ladies are in Puerto Vallarta. They're day 3. They're all getting ready for the day. We see Bronwyn and Angie eating breakfast. And Angie asked Bronwyn, so how did she sleep? Or did she sleep well? And Bronwyn said, no, Angie asked Bronwyn, how does she sleep? Did she sleep well? And Bronwyn says she did. We then see Lisa eating breakfast by herself. In her confessional, she says, I didn't sleep great last night because I took everything that was said at the dinner table and was up late working on and thinking through everything and how she felt about what was going on in her friendships. She said she's still kind of upset and hurt. And just when she thought it couldn't get any worse after dinner that night, after the whole big blow up, Bronwyn came into her room and let me know that she, Angie, and Whitney and Heather had a really messy conversation about me. She didn't say messy, but that's what I'm saying. So they show a flashback to the night before. It's Bronwyn, Meredith, and Lisa. And Bronwyn is saying to Lisa, today I came off the boat and did not feel super close to you. I did not feel like everything was great after last night. So there was a conversation that I was a part of. There were not nice things said. She says, I regret it and I'm unhappy about it. And yeah, so Lisa's kind of looking like, okay, thank you. Back in her confessional, Lisa says, I want to know what was said in that conversation, but there's so much gossiping and a lot of changing of stories. So the only way we're going to get to the bottom of this is if we get everybody in one place and we'll find out what the truth is. So she ends up sending the group chat saying ATV riding at 11. In her confessional, she said, it just sucks for me because before all of this happened, I planned this whole fun day. I don't know why I chose ATVing, but I Googled luxury experiences in Mexico and this came up. What I should have Googled was how to bury bishes. That's not what you should have Googled. But anyway, look, I will say this. If I was Lisa, I would be frustrated too. I'm going to say it now and I'll probably say it more when we get on the sprinter and they talk about it. Bronwyn telling Lisa that, no, you know what? I'm gonna wait till we get there. So Meredith goes to Heather's room and they see that they're almost dressed alike in their little tennis gear. Meredith says, I wanted to check in because last night was a little odd. Like, what is going on with Brittany? She says her behavior towards me was weird last night. She kept being like, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Which is weird. They show a flashback to Meredith asking Brittany, or I'm sorry, Brittany asking Meredith, are you okay? And all of that good stuff. Meredith says to Heather, so I felt like something was off there for sure. In her confessional, Meredith says, the implications of Brittany's statement seem to be that I have an eating disorder or that I'm emotionally unstable. And I think it's interesting that Meredith came to the conclusion about the eating disorder because that's what I initially thought. So it's interesting to see that Meredith thought the same thing. She says, it's enough. It needs to stop. She then says to Heather, and it's like so weird because as everyone's going to bed, she says to me, do you need a sleeping pill? I'm like, no, I don't need anything from you. Meredith says, I don't take sleeping pills, maybe like 2 times a year if I'm on an international flight or something. Did anybody else notice it seemed like it was a struggle for Meredith to get the word international out? Like, was she on something that? Anyway, back in her confessional, Meredith says, it seems like everyone thinks it's okay to talk about me behind my back and spread lies and intimate things that are not true. The thing is, when the story keeps coming up, sooner or later, people believe it. So Meredith says to Heather, I'm not okay with that, not at all. I freaking threw Angie out in support of her. And this is what she's doing to me, trying to run around and intimate that I have some type of eating disorder or that I'm unstable or whatever, because I was on the phone crying with my husband because I was upset about something. Heather says, because she barely got a word in this whole scene, Heather says, I don't know what her intentions were. Meredith says, well, I'm going to find out with a smile. All the ladies get on the Sprinter van, and y'all, we got some of the best television. Bronwyn says, whenever Todd says, is that new? I say, no, I've had this for a while. You just haven't seen it. Heather says, that's an old tactic. Lisa says, okay, I have questions. So Bronwyn brought something up last night. You guys had a little conversation with Bronwyn. What did you say about me? Angie says, well, what did she bring up? Bronwyn says, after dinner, I went into Lisa's room to make sure she was okay. She was crying at dinner. I said to her that I was hurt and I was upset about how the conversation went when I was talking about my marriage. We were not in a good place when I got off the boat. And we all talked about whether you were defending me or not. And I said, Angie said, maybe because everyone's mad at me, I made this up. That is not what Angie said. They show a flashback to the actual conversation that they had after the boat. Bronwyn said, I said I want to be transparent always. In her confessional, Angie says, what do you mean transparent? There was nothing transparent about having a conversation behind closed doors. It's time for Todd to buy you a dictionary. In the scene on the Sprinter, Angie says, okay, let's back up here. You didn't feel supported by everyone, and that's how it started at first. Bronwyn said, I didn't know. I said that I didn't. It was less warm with Meredith and Lisa. Meredith says, that's offensive, but that's fine. I'm sorry you feel that way. Lisa says, the point is, she sat down and said, you two, pointing at Angie and Whitney, not you, pointing to Heather, came and talked to her about me and said, Bronwyn stops her and said, no, that's not what I said. I said all of us talked. Heather says, that's not what happened. I'm telling you. Whitney screams, shut the F up. Let me tell you what happened, Lisa. You're not the only one that gets to talk. Listen. Lisa says, don't do this. Don't do this. You're not the only one that gets to talk. You guys keep getting away from the point. The point is, and Whitney screams, you asked me an effing question and you won't let me answer. Shut the F up, Lisa. Lisa says, you shut the F up. You're an effing bitch. You're an effing bitch. Whitney calls her a cunt. Lisa says, that's your trash mouth talking. That's why I call you trashy. Back in her confessional, Lisa says, oh my gosh, I really want to address this, but maybe I should have waited until we got to our excursion because now I have to listen to her. Oh my gosh, you're a cunt. Like for another straight hour. Like, I don't want to hear Whitney talking. Like, I mean, can someone give her a gag? I'm sure she's used to using them with Justin. The way Lisa has amazing breath control because she's always able to say a lot without even taking a beat, honey. So back in the scene, Whitney says, I've been in your inner space. Lisa says, you've never been in my inner space. Whitney says, yes. When I was last year, we were friends. I need to go back to something real quick. Bronwyn seems to use she's truth telling under the guise of something else. Like I'm truth telling, but it seems like it's under the guise of it being something else. Bronwyn had to know that her going to Lisa and saying, I was a part of a conversation where some not nice things were said, and you're saying Angie, Whitney, and Heather were there. You had to know that Lisa would be like, what were they saying about me? It's not just about you, Bronwyn. It's not just about you being good with Lisa. You've now put Heather, Angie, and Lisa, I'm sorry, Heather, Angie, and Whitney in a precarious situation. And if you didn't think about that, she could have very well went to Lisa and said, look, I didn't feel supported when I got off the boat. I even went and asked the other girls if they thought that you weren't supportive because that's how I felt. She could have said any of that, but she did make it seem like they all had a not nice conversation a part of her. Hold on one second, y'all. Sorry about that. Y'all had to pause for a minute. I always ask the same question. When I pause, would y'all even know if I didn't say anything? Anyway, so they're arguing about Whitney saying that she was in Lisa's inner space. Lisa says she wasn't. All of a sudden, child, we see Brittany's phone. Well, Angie notices Brittany's phone recorded. So Lisa is telling Whitney, I don't respect you. All of a sudden, Angie peeps it and says, wait, really quickly, Brittany, why are you recording the conversation? Turn your effing phone off. I said, come on, Angie. Brittany says, I wasn't recording the conversation. I was sending the video to Olivia. Angie says, yes, you are. And they show a flashback of Brittany recording the conversation. Angie says, with people arguing in the back, like you're sending a video to Olivia with people arguing in the back. Brittany says, oh my gosh, she just got 100% on her math test. And I'm recording. Angie says, recording the fight. Brittany says, I did not record the fight. Meredith yells, let's see it. Then Bronwyn says, show us the effing video, you psycho. You're psychotic, Jesus Jugs. No, I added that. Meredith is saying, let's see the video, yelling, let's see the video. Because at this point, from the whole time they're on the sprinter, Meredith doesn't have an inside voice. Angie says, swipe to the left like you do on Tinder and press play. Heather says, play it on full volume. Brittany's saying, I had the camera backwards. I was like trying to, Lisa says, delete and then delete the deleted. Mary says, you need to delete it. No, I'm sorry. Meredith says, you need to delete it. I've had enough of you. You are vile. You're recording us. I've had enough. Bronwyn says, we were talking about something I said that's so effing private and you're going to record me. Now that's where I'm like, I agree with them. Like, yes, they're signing up to be recording with these Bravo cameras. Brittany's secretly recording. It ain't cool. But Bronwyn's saying, you know, I'm saying something private. It's not like the cameras were down. And she was saying, but I still agree with the ladies. That is what Brittany was doing was foul. It wasn't cool. Again, yes, they've agreed and consented to record with the Bravo cameras, not Brittany hiding her phone recording. That is foul. Because my thought was, what are the producers thinking? Like, could that mess up her job with them? Because they could be thinking, oh, she get ready to send this to a blog. Because that's what I would be thinking. So Brittany says, I am in shock. I don't normally do this. Meredith is screaming she needs to go. I've had enough. Brittany says, oh my gosh, you guys, it was an effing accident. Bronwyn says, no, it wasn't an accident. 3 videos. They're all yelling at her and she's saying it's an accident still. Angie says, Brittany, you got to take accountability. She says, I'm trying to delete it. Lisa says, did you post any of this or send it to anyone? Brittany says, I've never done that. Bronwyn says, then why did you do it? Heather says, what did she record? Heather, now, mind you, all this is going on at the same time. So Heather's like, what, did she record us another time? Did she record us last night? In her confessional, Heather said, it's literally the worst invasion of privacy that we can imagine. We are deeply traumatized by friendship betrayals, and something like this just brings it up all to the surface. Brittany's saying, oh my gosh, I never record ever. Bronwyn says, how do we know that now? Lisa says, we've never done that to each other. Not once, never. Whitney says, we don't even do that to each other when we're hating each other. Brittany says, obviously there's a trigger here, so look through all my videos. I said, now, girl, don't try to act like they're the problem. Meredith says, it's not a trigger. It's not a trigger. Heather says, you don't record your friends when they're fighting, and the other ladies are yelling. There's just a lot of voices going on at once to Brittany. Meredith screams, clearly we can see who has issues here, and it's not me. Heather says, who are you going to send that to? Brittany says, no one, we're saving it for later. Bronwyn clocks it and says, nope, see, her story's changing. Because remember, first she said it was to Olivia. Now you're saying you're saving it for later. Why are you saving it for later? So Meredith yells, enough lies, enough dishonesty. Brittany is now telling them how she was recording. Heather says, we know, Brittany's trying to tell them, I was doing this, I was doing that. Heather says, we know how the phone works. So then Bronwyn says, Steve stands up and says, Steve Jobs, I don't need to know how an effing iPhone works. Meredith says, I'm so disgusted. I had you in my home. Like, Candace, I gave you a beverage. Brittany is saying, you guys, and she's trying to defend herself. Mary says, get her, Meredith. I love this. Some of the side commentary is just as important as the main commentary, and it's so funny. So, let me see. Brittany, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mary says, get her, Meredith. Heather says they have YouTube channels dedicated to this type of stuff. You don't know. you don't know. Basically, YouTube channels dedicate their channels to exposing secret recordings. So she says, you don't know not to secretly record wiretapping laws. Brittany says, I don't know this stuff. Heather says, okay, don't record your friends secretly to mark them. Brittany says, okay, see, you're putting intention on it. Heather says, okay, don't secretly record your friends. Done. Heather says, we shouldn't have to tell you this, Brittany. I've been fighting for you. I've been defending you. Child Meredith and made it about her. Meredith says, are you defending her commentary on me? Heather says, I did not know she was secretly recording us. Meredith screams, she's vile. In her confessional, Heather says, Brittany has effed up. I have defended her. I've been her friend, but now I'm feeling ashamed and embarrassed that I introduced her to all my friends and that I put them in this horrible situation. This is indefensible. Back on the sprinter, Meredith yells again, you're vile. Brittany says, stop it. Meredith says, no, I'm not going to stop it. You recorded your friends. You make up lies. You make character assassinations of people. You really disgust me. Lisa says, I will never trust you again. I will never, ever, ever trust you again, Brittany. I will be worried every time I'm with you. You're recording me. I've been through that already. Meredith says, Meredith says, you're making up lies and spreading lies. The van pulls into the park as Bronwyn is saying, why the F do you need that video on your phone on the heels of you saying how concerned you are about Meredith's mental and physical health, on the heels of saying Angie's marriage is effed up and maybe she's a slut. It's enough. Ooh, y'all, that took me. Oh, that took me. Brittany runs off sobbing. Y'all know Brittany was a Bravo adjacent, I mean, not Bravo, a Broadway adjacent actress. So just saying, keep that in mind. Angie says, oh, guys, oh, no, oh, no. Angie says, oh, guys, it was a lot. It was a lot. Mary says, who cares? We've all been through that. You guys can feel sorry all you want. She deserves that. Whitney gets out of the van to check on her. In her confessional, Whitney says, Brittany absolutely violated our trust, but that was a lot of yelling for one person to take, and we probably took it too far. Angie says, I think, back on the sprinter, Angie says, I think she just doesn't think it's a big deal. She doesn't. I'm not trying to be rude, but she's not the sharpest tool in the shed, so she doesn't realize the impact. Heather said, that's rich coming from you, Einstein. That's what I love about the show. We get every range of emotion and they're funny. Whitney's telling Brittany, I know that was a lot. Are you okay? Brittany says, no, I'm so sorry. I feel like in that one moment, I broke everyone's trust and I didn't mean to. I'm not doing anything. I don't have bad intentions in it. And it just breaks my heart. She's sobbing. She's an actress. Whitney said, so what was your intention filming the back of the seat? In her confessional, Brittany says, I swear on my life, I was not trying to record the girls. Brittany said, the producer says, okay, but it's very weird that you recording the back of the seat. That's all I'm going to say. Brittany says, well, did you hear that? While I was recording why I was recording the back of the seat? The producer says, I know, but it was for a while. Brittany says, no, it wasn't. It wasn't for a while at all. It was for 1 second. They show the flashback. And of course, it's more than a second. It was for 24 seconds. Back in her confessional, Brittany says, the back of the seat was literally for like a second and a half. Maybe it wasn't recording and I'm facing forward, like maybe. Are you sure? Back in the scene with Whitney, Brittany is saying to Whitney, the camera was turned around at that point. I was trying to get it to while I was holding record. So she's basically piecing a story together. She said, I was trying to get it to flip on my face so I could like say, love you. I'm proud of you. I'm thinking about you, but it wouldn't. So it stopped recording, not realizing that a video was also recording audio. So basically she's trying to say, she was trying to flip the camera around so she could say, love you. I'm proud of you. It wasn't doing it. And she didn't realize that the video was recording audio. Then she just starts crying. Whitney says, did you send it? Brittany says, no, she didn't. The rest of the ladies get off the van. Whitney says to Brittany, how do we know that you haven't already filmed, deleted it, and sent it? Brittany says, look through my deleted, look through everything, look through all my hidden photos, look through my deleted. Whitney said, it's hard to say, look at my deleted because you can delete the deleted. Brittany says, but you're going to see a lot of really embarrassing stuff that if I wanted to delete the deleted, I would have deleted those two. Child, it gets like who's on first, who's on second. So that's really, wait. So that's what I mean. Go look through my phone, go look through the deleted. I mean, I'm sorry, the deleted stuff, the stuff that's extra embarrassing. In her confessional, Whitney says, I feel bad for Brittany, but I'm not buying this little knave. I don't know how to flip a camera around, but I can delete a deleted video within 0.2 seconds. Back in the scene, Whitney's telling her to take a deep breath. I felt like I needed one too. They're all asking, where's Brittany? And you hear Mary say, where's Brittany? Where's Whitney? In her confessional, Whitney says, like, come on, Britt, I'm not stupid. Mary asks, is everything okay? As they all walk up. In her confessional, Whitney says, just admit that you're intentionally filming us. So they're going ATVing. They partner up Bronwyn's with Mary. Angie calls Heather over to go with her. And then Whitney goes with her. And then it's Lisa and Meredith. Basically, everyone's together. And Angie says, oh, what about Brittany? Because Brittany's standing by herself. Whitney calls Brittany to their car. Mind you, there's 4 seats. Only for the gentleman to say it can only be 2 per car. So Heather has to ride with Brittany. In her confessional, Heather says, that's how it's going to be, ladies. I have to ride with her. Yeah, because she's your friend you brought on. So then Heather asks Brittany, do you want to drive? And she says, yeah, I'll drive. In her confessional, Heather says, I'll go with Brittany, but I want her hands at 10 and 2, not secretly recording the back of the chair or the dash or me screaming for my life. Bronwyn and Mary are in the same car. Mary says, have you seen my goggles? Bronwyn says, yeah, they're around your neck. So they go ATV riding. In her confessional, Angie says, I don't love my hair blowing in the wind, and I don't love the wind on my face. I think it causes wrinkles and split ends. And Heather and Bronwyn's car, child, is quiet. They driving up the rough side of the mountain. It is silence of the lambs. They all end up getting to a distressed bridge that they have to drive over. The gentleman tells them after they're done, after they drive over the bridge, they get out of the cars. The gentleman tells them, be careful walking down these steps. Mary said, I hope it's nice where we're going because this is strenuous on the knees. They get to an absolutely beautiful view with water. Some of the ladies get in the water. Lisa's like, you couldn't pay me to go in that water. Brittany's in her bikini and she walks to the top of a rock with Whitney. Mary says, look at this girl. They're all, because Whitney and again, Brittany are up there. So Mary says, look at this girl. Good luck with your diarrhea and throwing up after you jump in there, both of you. Whitney jumps in. Mary is so funny. Mary says, geez, that looked good. I should have videotaped that. She says to Brittany, okay, your turn. Your last jump, babe. The next one's going to be a plane. Lisa is talking to Angie, Meredith, and Bronwyn, and they're sitting on rocks and says, do you think she thinks if she jumps off of a rock, we're going to forget that she recorded us? Angie says, it's wild to me how quickly she bounces back. Lisa said, this is why Jared feels like it's okay to break up with her and get back with her because she bounces. The breakup part is one thing, but the bounce is probably why he gets back with her because she probably wild. Anyway, Lisa says this, I said that. In her confessional, Lisa says, I feel like Brittany is living in a parallel universe. Like everything's all rainbows and unicorns and like nothing ever happened. But it's like, just because you look super hot in the bikini doesn't mean I forget that you were recording us an hour ago in the Sprinter van. She does look really good in her bikini. That's what Lisa says. So after that, they all go and get drinks and they're met with margaritas. Lisa tells them she ordered them some starters. Mary says, oh my gosh, this is strong, talking about the margarita. And then she says, cheers, you guys. They all cheers. Lisa says to reaching heights and new ones. Whitney says, I'm excited to eat. Mary says, me too. Heather says, this is so peaceful and delightful. Mary says to Brittany, why are you so quiet down there? Brittany says, oh, I'm just internalizing. Mary says, internalizing what, babe? She says, everything. Mary says, what part? The part that you got caught? Heather says, it's a violation of trust and it's absolutely like I've supported you and defended you. This is an indefensible thing. Brittany says, oh my gosh, I was filming the scenery. That's another lie. So basically, Brittany's trying to defend herself, lying again. Heather says, I cannot help you if you continue to lie. Brittany says, don't defend me. I've already told you my intentions. Lisa said, Brittany, the story has changed like 4 times now. Sure enough, they show a flashback and she had 4 different attempts. Change at why she was recording, 4 different excuses. Meredith says, do you think this is like a joke? what you're doing here because it feels like you're starting all kinds of stuff with everybody. You started all kinds of horrible things about me that were false. Brittany says horrible things. Meredith says, wait, horrible things. Meredith says, yes, things with zero truths. I think that's what she says. She says, I don't know why you're telling everyone I threw up because I told you I didn't throw up. Let's be clear. You are a liar and I'm not okay with it. Period. I said, period, Pooh. Brittany is shaking her head and getting dramatic and says, there's only one thing that I haven't come clean about on this trip. Mary says, what? Brittany says, I dare not even say it because I just want to go home and starts crying. I just want to go home. The ladies are just looking at her. Lisa says, Brittany, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. Brittany says, the one thing I have not been truthful about is that Jared and we do have a physical relationship. Mary says, girl. I love Mary. In her confessional, Mary says, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, that has nothing to do with you recording us. Are you okay? In her confessional, Angie says, I mean, Jared sleeps with everyone in Salt Lake City. Thank God he's sleeping with her. In the scene, Brittany says, I wanted to keep that private because it's like, I don't want to come out with that. Mary says, I mean, we all knew that. You didn't need to come out with it. Angie says, how is that relevant right now? Brittany says, you have to understand that. And then Heather says, give me your hand and reaches out to her. Angie, I totally get the point of this in a way that you'll never understand. So Heather's still like reaching for Brittany's hand and says, I'm trying to give you a little love tap. Mary says, like, what are we talking about? We already know that and then Heather stops her and says, for her to say that she's in a physical relationship with Jared, even after she's been married twice, had 2 daughters. Mary says, I get that. Heather says, for her to say that, that's like coming out of the closet. Mary says, I get that. And then Heather says, that's a big deal. I think I, I think she says, that's a big deal and points to Mary and Angie. And then she points to Bronwyn and says, and that's a big deal because you got exposed because you got pregnant and everyone knew you were doing it. Brittany says, you guys, there's a lot of shame. Like growing up active LDS, everyone in my family is LDS. And I've got 2 brothers that are bishops. I've got nieces that look up to me. And I just have a whole congregation. Heather starts crying. Brittany says, you have no idea what a big deal that is. Bronwyn says, no, I do. Heather says, Heather does. Bronwyn says, no, I do. Heather does. Lisa says, your community is very myopic. It's a very big deal and it's very myopic. Brittany says, me saying that out loud is going to change my life forever. Here's to my deepest, darkest secrets. Take it or leave it. I don't. There it is. And it's going to change my life forever. Whitney says, Brittany, I understand that completely. I was shamed leaving the Mormon church, for having an affair with Justin. Like I understand completely. Bronwyn says, so do I. Whitney says, but what did you think people were going to think when you're drinking margaritas and showing up in red lingerie dresses to dinner? Brittany says, oh crap, I'm so screwed. Bronwyn says, I understand exactly what it feels like to be shamed. With my daughter, nobody being happy for me. I didn't have a baby shower. Nobody was excited I was pregnant. Everybody wanted to keep it a secret, me to put her up for adoption, not raise her myself. The very best thing that has ever happened to me, the best thing I've ever done, the thing I am most proud of in my entire life is the thing that almost cost me my relationship with my family that I've had to explain for my entire daughter's life. So I actually do understand. And I'm saying this to you with all the sympathy and love in the world. You got to stop internalizing the shame, but you've also really got to stop saying, I'm going to shame other people to keep the secret for myself. That was really good. That was like projecting on other, or like trying to shame other people in order to keep your shame. I did think that was a good point that Bronwyn made. In her confessional, Bronwyn says, I understand why she feels that way. The rejection and the shame that people put on my pregnancy caused me to feel incredibly unworthy and damaged. And it took me years and years and years to get to a point where I was done punishing myself for how other people felt about me. And to be free of that stigma that has really offended so much in my life. In the scene, Heather says, these are the women, talking about the group. that gave me like a bridge out of the space you were in. And she starts crying. Lisa kind of comforts her and pats her back and says she was a good time girl. I guess she was trying to joke. Heather said, my neighbors are Mormon. My best friends are Mormon. My grandparents, my extended family, everything I know, my world is Mormon. And in my world, I had no value. I'm a failure. I'm a joke. And these women are the ones that have like told me that's not true. I think that's why Heather was so much like we've been in the foxhole together and all that, because they kind of accept her in this new space that she's occupying in life as far as Mormonism. She said, Lisa says, yep. When she says, these women have told me that's not true, Lisa says, yep. Heather says, but you have to be honest and you can't record us and use it against us. We're only vulnerable with each other. Lisa says, yes, that's the only place we're vulnerable. Heather says, we're not vulnerable with anyone else in the world. Lisa says, no one else, no one. Heather says, because no one else understands who we are better than each other. Brittany says, and for that, I'm really sorry. I really am sorry, you guys. Heather says, I don't think you have a mean bone in your body. I think you messed up. Lisa says, yeah. Brittany says, sorry, Meredith, if you feel like I've betrayed your trust. And I'm sorry if you feel like I contributed something and insinuated that you had an eating disorder. Meredith says, not feel, you did. Heather laughs and says, okay, let's take a breather. So they're all getting out of the Sprinter van. Like they must have got back on in the Sprinter van back to like the town where their hotel was in. They're now getting out. Angie jumps into the arms of the guy helping them. And Mary is cracking up, saying she looks like a baby. And as Meredith's getting out, Mary is telling Meredith, like, look at Angie. And they're all just cracking up. That's what I mean. Like they can have their funny moments. They go to the marketplace to go shopping. Now, there's a t-shirt that says, I'm shy, but I've got a big dick. And it's a penis underneath. The first one is the shirt with a black penis underneath. The gentleman that's selling across the marketplace says, I can show you mine. Mine is bigger. And camera goes towards it. They lift it up and it's white and it's bigger. Heather buys the black one. I mean, are we not surprised? In episode 1, season 1, she says she likes black. Okay. In her confessional, Heather says, this is exactly the souvenir I'm looking for to remember this girl's trip in Puerto Vallarta. Heather buys it and has the guy tied around her waist. She says, maybe we'll shadow box and frame it on the wall and just like get a little inscription like Puerto Vallarta 2024. She jokes, I hope to hand it down to my children's children. So they all get ready to go back to the hotel. They're walking back because someone says, let's go back to the hotel. Lisa says, we have an amazing dinner tonight. The ladies are all getting ready for dinner and Mary was doing her hair. And I thought this was such a sweet moment. Angie walks in. They both look gorgeous. Angie says, you want me to help you with your hair? And Mary says, no. Angie says, are you sure? Mary says, my hair is going to have to be fried because this is kind of what I'm doing. Angie says, no, it's not fried. So Angie picks up the brush and says, girl, you got a hairdresser in your room. And I just thought that was like really sweet. In her confessional, Angie says, it's really hard on Mary right now. And she's going through a lot. And knowing that she's holding something inside that the rest of the group doesn't know about, I really want to be there to support her because she's really important to me. She fixes Mary's hair and tells her it's perfect. Meredith makes her way to Heather's room, which is wild that she doesn't make her way to Lisa's room because she's been depending on Heather a lot. But anyway, Heather says, hello, are you getting ready? They get on Heather's bed. Remember when Stacy went to Kay's room in Panama, and she says, is it okay if I sit here again? Like, because we don't just be sitting on beds. But anyway, they get on the bed. Meredith says, I'm getting ready, but let me ask you a question. Have you heard me in my room? Because I haven't heard you in yours. Heather says, no, it's like a sanctuary. Meredith says, so I've been going over this and over this and over this. And the other night I had like a coughing attack, which is what I presume she may have constituted as throwing up. But here's the thing. If she could have heard my coughing, she would have heard my whole conversation with my husband. I'm feeling unsettled. The way Heather's looking confused, like, okay. Heather said, do you think she had a cup to the door? Meredith says, I wouldn't have thought of it, except today she's recording us on the bus. Did she leave something in my room? So Heather looks shocked, like, girl, what? Heather says, let's check it out. So in her confessional, Heather says, I can't believe my luck. This is my calling. If God were to part the heavens and let me know that he still loves me, this is the sign. I'm ready. You can count on me, Meredith, with like the salute. So they walk into Meredith's room. And this is funny. Heather says, hi, Fernanda, which is Meredith's makeup artist. She says, where was Meredith when she was throwing up with her eating disorder? Meredith laughed and says, there was no throwing up. So basically, they try to see if they can locate the recording device. Meredith is recreating her steps in the room, basically, and Child recreates her coughing attack. I said, now what? Okay. All right. They didn't find one. Heather says, clearly she's very good at what she does because there's no recording device in here. Meredith says it doesn't make sense. Heather basically tells her, just don't say anything in this room. Don't talk about anything. All the ladies are meeting in the villa. They all look beautiful. They all look very different, but very gorgeous. They all go out and get into their golf carts. Meredith, so they get to the restaurant. Meredith says, did it rain or something? And someone says, is it damp? And she says, yes. Heather says she loves that it's damp. It makes her feel tropical. So Mary says, are you guys tired? Lisa says, I'm tired. I risked my life on a cable bridge and was covered in dirt. Meredith says, you were an excellent driver. I'm so proud of you. You did a great job. In her confessional, Lisa says, after the craziness of the day, I wanted tonight's dinner to be totally different. Heather says in the scene, a lot of steaks are ordered tonight because they're all ordering steaks, which made me want a steak because I like steak. She says, oh, excuse me, y'all, I'm sorry. Heather basically says she feels like there's a lot of steaks tonight and that she started the trend. Back in her confessional, Lisa says, so tonight we're dining in elegance with peace and quiet. Angie says at the table, I want to clear up something that was thrown out today because obviously things went left and Brittany became sort of the topic. In her confessional, Lisa says, well, at least we're still dining in elegance. Angie says, I didn't really feel like I got to address the conversation that you brought up, Bronwyn. It was messy. It didn't come out clearly. I don't know if it's weirder that you spun the story that you spun the story or that you like said it and went running to Lisa with it. And you put me and Whitney in a bad position and Heather also because she was sitting there. Bronwyn says, nope, I did not. She said, Lisa and I were trying to clear up what was happening between us. I didn't say to her, I'm trying to cause the problem between you and Angie. I didn't run to her with an issue. Whitney goes to interrupt and Bronwyn says, no, I let Angie talk. Let me talk. Whitney gives her a look. It was a flash of the Whitney that can be unhinged. Like, okay, girl. So Bronwyn says, I said my own issue with her first. And I said I was not nice. I said I didn't think you were that supportive. I said it about myself. Now, she's basically saying, I went to Lisa and said, I didn't think you were supportive. I said some not nice things about you. But that's not how you ran it back. You ran it back. There was a conversation had, and there were not nice things said, and I was a part of it. And I was saying them. There was a conversation about you. There were some not nice things said, and I was the one saying it. No, you said there was conversation about you. There was not nice things said, and I was a part of it. Leading one to think if you were only a part of it, then there was more. So the other ladies must have been a part of it. I think it's getting a little semantic-y. Is that a word? Semantics with Bronwyn. I was like, I ain't really like that. Angie said, Bronwyn, when you did it at my expense. Bronwyn says, let me finish. Angie let her finish. She says, whether I meant to be nefarious during our conversation or not. Angie leans over and says, what does nefarious mean? Whitney says, yeah, what does it mean? Heather says, nefarious, evil, conniving. Angie says, I don't have my Google app. Whitney says, it feels like you felt guilty about something that was said in the conversation and you ran to Lisa to clear it before we had a chance to talk to Lisa about it. Bronwyn says, I did not. Whitney says, well, I think it's convenient that you waited until we were gone to have that conversation. Angie says, I do too. Bronwyn says, I don't. It's between Lisa and I. So I wanted a moment with her myself. Heather says under her breath to Whitney, two-faced. And see, that's where I'm like, oh, Bronwyn, this particular one kind of seemed, I still like you, girl, but I'm just not liking this right here. This seems very calculated to me. Whitney shakes her head yes to Heather saying two-faced. In her confessional, Bronwyn says, I know they don't appreciate that I went to Lisa, but this has nothing to do with them. This was about Lisa and I getting clear and getting on the same page. And I'm not going to get twisted into thinking I've done something wrong here. When Bronwyn keeps saying this is about Lisa and I know I keep saying it, but I feel like she should have went to Lisa and been like, when I got off the boat today, I was pissed because I feel like you don't support me and I feel like you don't believe me. She didn't even have to bring up that there was a conversation with the ladies because they didn't say anything negative. All she had to do was say, I felt some type of way, because Brahman likes to use those kind of terms. She could have said, I felt some type of way and I didn't feel like you supported me and you either married. Like it could have been very simple. Um, Meredith says, well, I mean, I still have a question that doesn't add up to me. Brittany says, okay. Meredith says, I've been in this villa for several days now. I've never heard anything from the adjoining rooms next to me. Meredith says, I haven't either. Meredith says, I did not throw up, okay? I was on the phone with my husband crying. There was no vomiting. I did have a bit of a coughing attack at one point, but that was the extent of it, which is maybe what you heard or not heard. But I find it very perplexing that I haven't heard one thing from Heather's room or your room. Brittany says, I have no idea what you're even getting at, Meredith. Like, I feel like you're trying to look for things to be mad at me about. Meredith says, no, Brittany, I'm the only one that's actually supported you. Brittany says, until today, it doesn't say you came after me. Wait. Oh, Meredith says, you came after me like a roaring beast, telling everyone false stories about me. And here's why I'm questioning you. Brittany's like, came after you. That's so strange, Meredith. Meredith says, here's why I'm questioning you. And Brittany says, again, that's strange. Meredith says, today you chose to record us without our knowledge. Why would I not start? The question is, if you put something in my room at this point. Child, the ladies are like, they all looked like, yo, this is out of left field. Like they were genuinely shocked. Brittany says, oh my gosh, are you serious? Meredith says, yes, I am. And I think it's reasonable and I think it's a reasonable and rational question when I have heard zero everywhere else. Mary leans over across Angie and says, Whitney, can you hear me? Whitney says, no, can you hear me? Mary says no. Meredith says to Brittany, so answer the question. Did you put a recording device in my room? Brittany says that's the most ridiculous thing I've heard in my entire life. Meredith says that's not a yes or no. Brittany says absolutely no. In her confessional, Mary says there's absolutely no benefit of Brittany putting a device in Meredith's room. Meredith is boring. I mean, no offense. She's not the funnest person in the world. Like, what would you get from that? Like, can you imagine? I would fall asleep. Back in the scene, Brittany says, I think this is absurd. Lisa says, well, I guess this is enough fun for the night. And Heather said, let's go. So Meredith, Heather, Angie, and Mary ride in the same golf cart. And it was cute. Mary takes Heather's hat and puts it on her head. They all have a laugh. Heather's like, don't take my hat, Mary Cosby. Mary says, my hair is a frisball. Angie says, and I think she's saying it to Heather, that whole Bronwyn thing was blown out of proportion. Was there anything bad that was said that day that we were at the little lunch table? Heather says, not bad. We just said they were the only two that took Todd's side. Now, remember, Meredith is in the car too. She's one of the two, her and Lisa, that took Todd's side. Angie says, and I said, Meredith is kind of PC. They flash back to that lunch. Meredith said, what could I have done to be more support? Like, and so back in that moment, Meredith says, what could I have done to be more supportive? Heather says, she said you blamed her because she was guarded. That's what drove her husband to an emotional affair. Meredith says, I asked her a question and I asked her if that might be the problem to try to be helpful. So what was said about me? Heather said, we said because we know about about tumultuous marriages, you might be just saying it's better to keep it quiet, but who cares? Let it go. Mary says, how do I keep quiet? Meredith says, how do I keep quiet? Heather says, emotional affairs. Meredith says, I never said that. In her confessional, Meredith says that this is a very loaded statement. You want to talk about my marriage? Talk to me. As she's getting out of the golf cart, she's saying, what? In her confessional, Heather says she's trying to imply that things are going on that are not. As they're walking in, as they're walking in, they're all getting out of the car. Wait a minute. And they're talking about how Bronwyn said she didn't feel Meredith says to Bronwyn, did you say you didn't feel my support and I'm sorry, let me go back. They're getting out of the car. They're walking in the villa. And then Meredith says to Heather, as we were getting out of the car, as we were getting out of the golf cart, did you say that Bronwyn didn't feel support and that I co-signed like emotional affairs, or did I misunderstand? Heather says, you misunderstood. They're behind her messing with her hat. And Heather's saying, Whitney, stop it. And Whitney's saying, it's Bronwyn. They're just trying to have a cute little moment. Heather says, you guys, before you go to your villa, let's do a little experiment. Let's do a little audio testing. In her confessional, Heather says, we can get over the whole emotional affair thing and get back to the real important issue. Heather says, we have conspiracies to uncover and we have bugs to search for. We have an audio test to conduct. We've got a case to crack wide open. So Heather's having fun and basically telling all the ladies at Meredith's room, we need to do this audio test in Meredith's room. And they're making fun of basically Meredith saying there's that Brittany may have put a device in there. So Heather, like I said, she's having fun. And Meredith says, you can do what you want. I'm much more interested in what you said as we were getting out of the golf cart. I'd like to hear what that was. Heather said, I believe it was projection of having been through infidelity. Meredith says, there was no infidelity. My husband and I were separated. Heather says, why are you yelling at me? Meredith says, because I don't know who's starting more rumors about me. Heather says, well, it's certainly not me. We have to do this audio test because she's trying to change the subject. Meredith says, no, they're not doing the audio test because she's going to bed. I've had enough. I've had enough. Y'all need to treat me with kindness and with respect. Mary says, what did you say, Heather? Because for Meredith to be going off like this. Heather says, don't look at me. I didn't say anything. As Meredith is saying, don't tell my story. I don't co-sign affairs and infidelity. The ladies are confused as Meredith walks off. So Lisa goes after Meredith. So all the ladies are just still standing, in the common area. Meredith has stormed off to her room. Lisa follows behind her. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. The ladies so Lisa goes. So Heather let them know that when they were in the golf cart, they were talking about the conversation and that Meredith basically misconstrued and lost her mind. In the room, Lisa says to Meredith, what happened? Meredith says, what happened is they're all talking and I'm not going to let them do it anymore. I'm not going to let them defame me anymore. I've had enough. I offered my own experiences as like a way to support to me, which is a big deal. I don't have to open up to anybody, just like you don't. So all the ladies are outside the door listening, and we can hear Meredith talking. Mary says, no wonder Brittany heard her. Y'all, I said, come on for the commentary. Meredith tells Lisa she shouldn't open to anyone in this effing group either. Like basically, don't you open up to anyone, which I thought was funny and such a difference when earlier in the day, Heather's saying, we're only vulnerable with each other, and Lisa's co-signing it. And now Meredith is telling Lisa, don't you open up to anyone in this group. And Lisa says, no. Meredith says, I was talked about my marriage and what has been done. No, Meredith says, I was talked about and my marriage and what has been done. And Lisa says, weapon. Meredith says, weaponized against me. Don't bother. Lisa says, I would be upset too. Meredith says, the audio test, you think I care about that? I know we all know exactly what's going on. And I'm sure she can hear me now talking about Brittany. And Whitney and Angie, who were at the door, run away from the door, laughing. Meredith says, it's effing enough. The episode goes off and we will get the season finale next week. I'm sad that it's going off, that the season finale is next week. But we do get the reunions. Y'all, what is going on with Meredith? This show was so good to me. It did not miss. It has not missed. Y'all, please let me know what y'all think about Brittany. Do y'all think Brittany was acting when she was inconsolably crying about recording? Do y'all think she was recording on purpose? What do y'all think about Meredith and making it a thing about Brittany putting a recording device in and then kind of turning on Heather? Let me know what y'all think. I really want to know what y'all think about the Bronwyn of it all. Bronwyn going to Lisa. And then the outcome of that. Did y'all think that Bronwyn was kind of misleading with that? Like she should have just kept it to what she said and felt about Lisa. And the commentary was chef's kiss. All right, y'all. I will talk to y'all later. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, if you haven't, please jump on over to whatever podcast app you have, type in what else is going on, and follow the podcast over there. That would really help. Please leave a review on the podcast. And if you're listening to the podcast, please come on over to YouTube, type in WeGo, WEIGO podcast, and subscribe to me over there and leave a comment. I would really appreciate it. It would really help me out. Thank y'all so much for rocking with me, and I will talk to y'all later. See ya.